Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some massive news for us Michigan fans coming out of the recruiting trail as Michigan lands the commitment from four-star defensive lineman Nathaniel Marshall in the 2025 class. And I think one of the big takeaways that I have is new defensive line coach Lou Esposito getting it done early on the recruiting trail. When we hired Lou Esposito, we knew the player development was certainly there. This was a guy that produced multiple dudes to the NFL level at Western Michigan, an elite player developer. I think the question that we all had was, can he come to the Power 5 level, get it done on the recruiting trail? We get a quick answer to that one, and it's a big-time yes. Nathaniel Marshall, one of the more coveted defensive linemen in this 2025 cycle, and I'll say this, after watching some film, we're going to dive into it. This is one of those kids that you just want to bet on. 6'5", 265 pounds, big-bodied, but a phenomenal athlete that has a lot of versatility. You'll see him play the edge position. You'll see him play on the inside. You'll even see him play a little tight end and flash the real athleticism that he has wherever this kid plays on the defensive line, whether it's a heavy-handed edge roll, whether it's on the inside. You know that this kid is going to be a big-time player for Michigan over the next couple of years. And another thing I'll say is he's pretty ready to play now. Like, this is a guy that I would expect to come in that 2025 season and kind of be an early contributor for Michigan. Want to get into the film, talk a little bit about what Nathaniel Marshall brings to this Michigan defense. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. Massive shout out to the Michigan fans. Y'all know I'm a massive Michigan fan. It's been a blast talking this program, whether we're breaking down the spring game, talking transfer portal, talking the recruiting trail. Cannot thank you guys enough for rocking with the fellas. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into Nathaniel Marshall. I think one of the first things that I kind of saw when I looked at the film of Nathaniel Marshall, very similar prospect to Derek Moore coming out from St. Francis Academy a couple years ago, where you get a juiced up athletic defensive lineman that has phenomenal size and power in his hands. Derek Moore was a guy that came into this Michigan program, played early as a true freshman. I think I can see a very similar trajectory for a guy like Nathaniel Marshall, who gives you that nice floor in terms of, this kid is going to be very solid for Michigan. I think what you're most excited about, similar to Derek Moore and what we might see during this season, is I think that ceiling is super high as well. When you have the athleticism and twitch that Nathaniel Marshall has, and then you combine that with the power that he has in his hands, that's when you're getting a special defensive lineman. I think the question now is, all right, where do you slot Nathaniel Marshall in? This is a guy that we're going to turn on the film. You're going to see the first couple of reps of him as a tight end flash, phenomenal athleticism, and say, yeah, he certainly could play that edge role. But I look at Nathaniel Marshall and say 6'4", 265 going into his senior year. You can kind of see a trajectory like Chris Jenkins as well, where Chris Jenkins came in as an edge rusher, put on a lot of weight, and kind of kicked on to the inside. Think they could also do that with Nathaniel Marshall. And again, he gives you that versatility, a guy that could play the three tech, could play the edge. That's massive for this Michigan defense. We know we like to move these guys around on the defensive line. Want to get into the film, talk a little bit about what he brings. And I think the first thing you see is, this kid's a freak show in terms of athleticism. You see him play kind of that wide receiver role where the body control, the functional athleticism is absolutely extraordinary for a guy like Nathaniel Marshall in space, his movement patterns and movement skills. For someone that, again, is 265 pounds, the coordination, the ability to play the football, the ability to run routes like a wide receiver at 6'4", 260 pounds is extremely impressive. Again, you see the physicality at the catch point. Now, I don't think Michigan plays him on the offensive side of the football. He's getting recruited on the defensive line. But you talk about, sometimes we like to overcomplicate the game of football. At the end of the day, it's a height, weight, speed game. You want to get guys that are big, that are physical, but also bring that athleticism. You see that with Nathaniel Marshall on the offensive side of the football. Now you get into the defensive reps and you start seeing Nathaniel Marshall be extremely disruptive on the defensive line, working at that nose tackle spot, kind of right over the center right now. You see him give offensive linemen so much problems with his athleticism, his length, and his get off. This is a guy that when he's working on the inside, is extremely good off the football. You see the closing speed there, but then when you kick him out to the edge, he's going right through tackles. He knows how to use his length as well. Again, He's a box checker. Length, athleticism, power in the hands, works mostly on the inside. I could certainly see him being an edge rusher for Michigan, but again, a lot of things that you like, right? Closing speed, athleticism in space. This is a guy that I think has a really high upside. Love what he does on the inside. I mean, that get off, you go back and watch that one. He is the first one off the line of scrimmage on the inside, really challenging those interior offensive linemen with his burst, with his athleticism and get off the line of scrimmage. You're talking about a guy that's 265 pounds that moves the way Nathaniel Marshall does. I am a massive fan of Nathaniel Marshall. Massive fan. I mean, those swim moves, absolutely nasty. And you take a look at what Michigan is building in this 2025 class. So you see, I mean, you go back to this rep. We just saw him win with speed off the line of scrimmage a couple times. Now you want to see the power in his hands. You see this get off. I mean, he knows how to get right into interior offensive linemen, put them right into the lap of the quarterback. I am really fired up about this kid, a ton of projectable traits. And you take a look at Michigan in the 2025 class, and I think a lot of Michigan fans know that we're just getting started, right? We got Carter Smith landed as our quarterback of this 2025 cycle. And then you look at the defensive line, you have Nathaniel Marshall and Bobby Conca. This is a really exciting defensive line because you look at Bobby, you look at Nathaniel Marshall and say, these guys could do a little bit of both for Michigan. I could certainly see Bobby and Nathaniel Marshall kind of put on some weight, get up to 290, 300 pounds and play on the inside. But I could also see both of these guys kind of play that edge role as well. I think if you're Michigan, you're looking at what got us to a national championship, what got us to where Michigan is right now. And it's line of scrimmage play, it's depth along the line of scrimmage. You see Michigan consistently prioritize line of scrimmage play on both sides of the football. We have no question marks about the development with Sherrone Moore in this offensive line. And then you look at the defensive line, you got Bobby committed, now Nathaniel Marshall. You feel really good about where Michigan is going to be on the line of scrimmage, and you make no mistake about it. This is how Michigan got to a national championship, controlling the line of scrimmage, and it starts with recruiting these kind of bodies at the high school level. Nathaniel Marshall, massive commitment, and I think Michigan really just getting started. You take a look at Michigan, why they might have had a slow start to the 2025 class. We just kind of finalized our coaching staff about a month ago. And so now these coaches are just starting to dig their kind of teeth in to this recruiting cycle, start formulating those relationships. If you're a Michigan fan, I mean, you're really excited about the next couple months on the recruiting trail. We'll end it at that. Nathaniel Marshall, difference maker on the defensive line. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.